So welcome everybody to our session to be more about tips for how to write for digital rights. We at SMEX, I am Abed Qataya, digital content manager at SMEX, and Nurhan, our English editor, will be with us. We actually at SMEX, I don't know, most of you may know that we usually write and publish about digital rights issues in Lebanon and the Arabic-speaking region. And we try to have good stories about digital rights. It's not an easy topic actually. It's a bit hard, and that's why we're trying to have authentic and also original stories and well-edited stories, be it in Arabic or English, because we believe that we are advocating on digital rights by sharing knowledge. And to share good knowledge, you need to have good content. And to have good content, you need to have good contributors and good editors. So this is why we are focusing on the editorial thing in SMEX. We have different units, or maybe let's say different channels to disseminate our work. First one is our website, where we publish our blog posts and where we publish our work, our reports, our campaigns, and also we use the newsletter to disseminate our work, and also the MENA digital rights news in our region. Also, we have subscribers from all around the world. We also use social media, but now social media is not our main channel actually, to be honest. It is still important, but we believe that also reaching out to people through emails, through direct discussions, through meetings, and through direct connection is too much important for us to keep this momentum, and also to bring more people to be interested on digital rights, and also to maybe a short discussion, a quick discussion would be much important than a campaign on social media, like this one, for example, or maybe Britain.net. هلا كمان نحن we mainly focus on evidence-based content. That's why it's a little bit hard to work with us and to write for us. But it's also we're trying to be not all the time pessimistic, because we believe you need to only be, to also be to have the good vibes, and also to have some recommendations. Every time we try to have recommendations in most of our cases, because we believe also that you don't only want to publish the bad news, or maybe to point at the issue or at the concern, but you need also to find or to suggest some solutions for it, right? So that's why we focus also on, we have good experts, cybersecurity, digital safety experts, technical experts, legal experts. We have all these units at SMEX, and we also reach out to experts in different countries. We always ask the contributor to talk with different people from different backgrounds, not only digital rights, because we believe that everybody has a lot of knowledge to share. So we ask them, please reach out to your local network, reach out to your, I don't know, maybe we ask them to sometimes to do some interviews with regular people, to ask them about any issue related, for example, to telecommunication, to e-learning, during Corona and during COVID period. So we try to not to be this traditional journalism, but also to be this digital journalism with good content, and also with a message. The message is to advocate for digital rights. For this, to achieve this, and also to be to be this constant, and to be on the track, we have editorial guidelines. My colleague Nurhan will talk more about it. We have a very big editorial guidelines for SMEX teams and also for the contributors, and we always try to abide by these guidelines. But sometimes we like to be a little bit creative, so it's not static activity, but rather it's a bit more creative activity. And we have in addition to the blog post, we have to the blog, we have the social media channels. We have the videos we publish, and we discuss things through videos also, and also we have infographics. We also write reports, and we have researchers who like conduct reports and who will publish a very good reports like the one that you have in your pocket, in your bag. This one, it was like a digital ID in the Gulf region. يعني we always try to be like to write our content on based on evidences. هلا احكي شوي بالعربي كمان. بالعربي نحن بنجرب كثير كمان انه يكون المحتوى العربي عندنا هو الاساس. يعني عم نحكي دائما انه بالمنطقه الناطقه باللغه العربيه، لانه هذا الكونتنت بعده مش متوفر بشكل كبير باللغه العربيه. لانه نحن كمان بنسميها المنطقه الناطقه باللغه العربيه، لانه في عندنا نحن على اعتبار ثقافي هذا واعتبار لغوي بيجمع المنطقه اكثر من انه يكون لما نقول العالم العربي عم نختصر كثير اثنيات وكثير ناس يعني موجودين بهالمنطقه. Arab, not everybody is Arab يعني. So we say like the Arabic speaking language, not even MENA يعني. It's not MENA as a
compared to who?
Yeah, to whom? And the Near East also, yeah. To the European and the Americans, no لا we are like يا اما شيء جغرافي مثلا فينا نقول وانا يعني West Asia and North Africa، يا اما بيكون شيء لغوي as Arabic speaking region. يعني we try to respect the different cultural groups in the region. طيب لهذا الشيء نحن بنركز على المحتوى العربي مجرد قد ما فينا يكون محتوى اصلي باللغه العربيه and we translate also. نحن our target audience is not يعني is everyone actually, not only journalists, not only activists, not only lawyers. So يعني that's why we have يعني عندنا كثير مواضيع مختلفه، عندنا كثير تغطيات مختلفه بتتناول جمهور مختلف. كل مره بيكون جمهور مختلف عن الثاني. يعني بنجرب قد ما فينا نراعي هذا الشيء كمان بكتاباتنا، يكون يعني we use easy language in our content, we use like common language and we try to not to write like complex and شو نسميهم كمان terms. So yeah, that's mainly.
Why to approach this kind of
I will give you the mic.
Yeah,
so my colleague Nuran will talk more about the editorial guidelines, how we implement them in our process.
Thank you. Merci. شكرا. Okay. So just to add on what Abed said, why do we use this accessible language when we're writing for digital rights? Because we know that it is a very niche topic and not everyone is interested in reading about telecommunication companies or internet shutdowns. We know this. We know that it's not the hottest topic as a digital rights field. But because it's so pervasive, the access to the internet, access to telecommunications, our freedom of expression online is so prevalent and it's there in our lives, in our everyday lives. We need this language to reach the widest audience we can reach. And that's why the language has to be accessible, has to be light, to explain the terms that we use. Now I'm going from the bottom to start again with our editorial guidelines. So we did a huge revamp to the guides. So why are we writing? What are we looking for? Who is our audience? What is the approach that we're going to write with? And for that, we, with Afaf, also, she helped us very much revamp these guidelines to make them, they're going to be available online for everyone to use if they ever want to write about digital rights. So when we say digital rights, like what are we going to be writing about? We're going to be writing about freedom of expression, access to the internet, privacy. We're going to be talking about how, for example, vulnerable groups online, their voices are being silenced by tech platforms, by states. So how these big actors also affect our digital spaces and how much we can maneuver in them, what we can say, what we cannot say, what content is being taken down. And of course, each country has its own issues that need to be focused on more intensely. For example, in Lebanon, a few weeks ago, there was a raid on refugee camps in the Bekaa region where their routers were confiscated, their TVs were confiscated, internet devices. And there is no clear reason why this has happened, but it happened, and we covered that. So one of our reporters, editors with us, how would someone approach this? How would I cover this story? Now I know that there's this huge number of camps actually have no access to the outer world. They have no access between each other, and they were threatened. Their camps were tarnished, and they were wrecked, and children were there, families were there, and they saw all of this. So how would you report on such a story? So first, we needed to talk to someone who's in the camp. We needed to talk to the people who are on the ground who have experienced this. Through voice notes, through phone calls, we talked to 3 to 4 people to get the details of what happened. We have this framework. And now we want to know who did this. So they said that the people were wearing army suits. We talk to the army spokesperson and ask them, did this really happen? We heard this news. Of course, they're going to deny it, but at least we got some input from them. Denying it is still an input that we can get because we need to also present their perspective. So this is how the process goes. We talk to the people there, to whoever was responsible, and then we can get quotes also from, for example, someone who works at a human rights organization affiliated with the camps, or who has worked with the people there, or someone from SMEX who would like to say something about how important it is to have this access to information. So these are just like a very brief example of how a story comes together. And of course, when we write, we always look for credible sources, so from organizations that have done research, statistics, very well-researched reports. So always the information has to come from somewhere credible, so that whoever is reading this can go back to the source of the story, and every piece of every claim can be verified. Okay, so yeah, also among the topics is online hate speech, gender-based attacks, surveillance, freedom of expression and freedom of speech online, online misinformation and hate speech, which we know runs rampant in the Arab region, unfortunately. Internet shutdowns, and usually in our articles we cover a specific country each time. So, or we cover a topic that crosses borders. So internet shutdowns is an issue that happens in Sudan, it happens in Yemen, it happens in Syria, it happens in Jordan. So we can have an article that would encompass these elements, but usually we do focus on every specific region. There is no vague topic, like overall topic. It's always important to have it written from a very specific context. Just looking through my notes. The audience, yeah, who would read stories about digital rights? So most of the time, it is researchers working in this field. It is human rights defenders who want to have more information about issues that have affected humans on the ground. Technologists also, even state actors sometimes look at digital rights stories. For example, we've done this kind of summary of a report that was done by the Audit Bureau in Lebanon on the corruption, in our telecom state. So there were millions and millions of dollars squandered in this sector. And at the same time, the government had the audacity to raise prices 5-fold their original amount to make up for all the losses that were the responsibility of whoever squandered the money. So people are now paying for the money that was paid for jet planes, fancy furniture in their offices, hotels, and God knows where. So this report is super important. And why was I saying this? Because, yeah, the audience. So we were reached out also by state actors to have a discussion about the report. Like, you published this, let's talk about it. There are things that are not true about it. So of course they will always deny it. They will always try to say that this did not happen.
Also during COVID, you mentioned the impact.
Yeah. Also during COVID, there was this app called Impact, and it was used in Lebanon. Similar versions have been used across the region and the world to track COVID-19 and also to register for your vaccination. So we did a privacy policy assessment of their platform and also of the security of the platform, and it turned out that the information is completely accessible to anyone who is a bit tech savvy. They can get the information, passports, passport numbers, addresses. Daily movement, exactly where you've been. So this was super like high risk platform. And we did an assessment and we published it, and they actually fixed their privacy policy. They didn't have a privacy policy. They published a privacy policy. They worked on the security loops. Patches, yeah, I forgot. I wanted like a hole. I forgot what the word is. Gaps, yeah, the security gaps. So it's super important to write about these issues. This also brings us back to the question of why are we writing about digital rights? Because there is always space to work with these monsters, but we can work with them. We can offer recommendations, and in many cases they will actually listen if we can provide enough. If we can provide them with the recommendations, especially in Lebanon, where it's not the most super tech savvy. It is super tacky, tech savvy country. I can walk you a bit through the story structure. Like we can discuss what you'd like to know more. Like we can talk about the structure of the story, of a digital rights story. We can talk about maybe interviews. What would you like to hear about? Yeah. About?
Like shutdown.
Yeah,
Shutdown,
yeah.
which is a very real-time event.
Yeah.
And the process you go through is obviously tedious. So how can you manage to sort of push out the article or like the information in time while the issue is so relevant?
So what could be super important is to write about it before it actually happens. So in a lot of these countries, we know when the internet shutdown is going to happen. Usually if there's political upheaval, if there is the excuse of exams taking place, if there's some election happening, expect to have an internet shutdown around that time. So come prepared if this is really a topic you want to write about. Each country has its phases of internet shutdowns, and most of the time it happens around like local exams, when everyone has to go and do the official exams in the country. So if we're writing about that, for example, you can look at the internet monitoring platforms like NetBlocks, for example. They will immediately know when there's a shutdown. They will post a graph about it. And then what you could do as a reporter is you could talk to people after, of course, the shutdown has been over, who have been impacted by this. So for example, if students, business owners, entrepreneurs, people who work online, you can get their statements, you can get their testimonies, which in this case specifically is the most important element that you can have, because you're reporting the real life impact of something like an internet shutdown. So you could definitely get testimonies, you can offer alternatives if they exist for that country. There are some apps that work without internet, they use Bluetooth. You can offer that, for example. You can write why these internet shutdowns are happening, the scope. So just being very involved with what's happening on the ground as a result of the shutdown could be a way of dealing with that. Yeah. Would you like to look at the structure of the story structure? Okay. So we follow usually the same structure as most journalists do. We start with the main, the either inverted pyramid, where we have the most important information at the beginning, and then we give the who, what, why, where, following that, and then we start giving any additional analysis we have. We follow that format. And we start basically first, of course, with the headline. This is a super important element of any story. Usually the shorter, the more concise it is, precise and factual. We're not trying to exaggerate something or say make it sound much more attractive. It's not a tabloid, it's not a celebrity magazine. Working in journalism, you have to be very factual. Say exactly what happened in as little number of words you can. This is for the headline, the beginning of your story. And then we move into the lead. So the lead is like, imagine you have a rope pulling someone in. Like, you're going to hang your words that are going to pull someone in on that lead, on that rope. And usually it's around 30 to 35 words long. It can be a fact, a quote, an anecdote that leads the reader into the topic. And usually if you would like to think of, okay, so I know this happened, what is my lead? You can ask, you can imagine someone has just called you and asked you, okay, what happened? And it's your friend and you want to tell them in a sentence what the story is. This is usually the lead. It's the gist of the story that will pull someone to continue reading. It doesn't have to have all the information, just what you think is, why is this important? Why are you telling me about this? And this is usually very much tied to the not graph. So the not graph, as the term implies, it's everything in a nutshell. So you're telling someone this happened, the not graph will tell them why this is important and why you should hear about this, why you should learn about this. Yeah, the lead is more of a hook, the not graph is more of why are you hooking me? Yeah. And of course, to have the 5 W's, who is the story about, what is the story about, where did it happen, when did it happen, and why. This can be in the second paragraph, it's completely fine, just as long as the first impression is strong to pull someone in. You can always start with a quote that someone said, or a fact like number, statistic related to the incident, whatever it may be. So I'm going to give you an example actually of a lead, an example of a not graph, and they're both related. So the lead could be, the Ministry of Telecommunications in Lebanon raised prices fourfold to save the telecom sector at the cost of depriving hundreds of thousands of the right to communication. Bit long, but this is the lead. You're leading someone into the story. And then the not graph would be something like, the minister's decision to raise tariff prices amid a historic economic crisis will be costly for almost every phone holder in Lebanon. That's why it's important, because so many will not have that right to communicate anymore. Many will have to ration their mobile internet subscriptions, which might affect their work, study, and digital communication. So this is why this is important, because people's work will be affected, their ability to communicate, and their ability to have access to education. Subscribers are now forced to pay the price for over 20 years of corruption and mismanagement in the telecom sector. So this is like a not graph. Everything I kind of want to say, what happened, why it's important, and what are the implications, exactly in that not graph. It's a paragraph and it puts everything in a nutshell. We also use subheadings in our format. So there's the main heading. We started with the lead, not graph, 5 W's, and then we have a small heading for each idea that we want to be tackling. It's like taking someone down the ladder of the story. So you have each one of these, you can imagine them as a step on that ladder. For example, history of corruption, the raise in the telecom prices, the effects of that. So each one will have its place, just to guide people to what you're telling, through what you're telling them. A very important aspect also of the story is to have contextual and background information. So of course, no one is expected to know all the digital rights backgrounds in every country. Even if I am a super expert on Lebanon, I maybe do not know that much about Libya, or maybe about Yemen, or whoever is reading who has nothing to do with the field is going to find it even harder to catch up and to keep up. So we need to give them some background about the country itself, not specifically about digital rights, but what's happening in that country right now? Where are they historically in that moment? And what I think the most important part of the article will be the analysis. So this is where the good digital rights reporting comes in, because we want to know what's happening, like why have we reached this point right now? And what will this mean for the people who are using the internet, or for whose rights are being abused online, or for people who are being surveyed? So this is your place to shine in the analysis, where you will bring in your critical analysis. Because the whole point of writing about digital rights is to get people to engage critically with these issues. Because a lot of us, unfortunately, we use the internet, we inhabit these digital spaces without really knowing what it means to live in them and to be in them, and our responsibility and what's expected of us in being in them. And at last, of course, you can end with a conclusion, tying everything up, and you can offer recommendations whenever it's possible. We can't expect to always have recommendations, unfortunately. How are we on time? Okay. We still have... yeah. So of course, as anyone who's written for journalism or has been interested in writing for journalism would know, that credibility and accuracy are the #1 pillars of any like ethical, decent journalism. And how do you achieve credibility and accuracy? Of course, through using sources, through claims that are substantiated with links that are judicious and from primary sources. So for example, if we have a law that came up and so many people are covering this law on digital rights, you have to link the actual law in whatever language it comes in. This is a super important thing to keep. If there are translations, then you can link those, but it's always good to go back to the original source of the story. And usually what happens on the internet is that, let's say, the New York Times will put up a story, then the Guardian will cover the same story in a different way, then the cycle will go on. Everyone is adding comments to that original story, and sometimes the original story is lost. So our responsibility as journalists is to find the original story, who reported on this at the earliest stage, and so that we can link back the readers to that story. Also, sometimes in our coverage, we do link, for example, tweets or social media accounts that are related to, for example, let's say a really big influencer said something, and something is being done to it, let's say. We can link that as this is where it happened to be. And also, for example, in Lebanon, a lot of the like state news is disseminated through Twitter accounts. So the General Security in Lebanon posts their news on Twitter. So in that sense, they are considered a credible source because they are the original initiators of the story. If there is a story that you cannot find the source for, try as much as you can not to come close to it. Yeah, unless you have that. And in our reporting, we always use the hyperlinks. So we make a claim, let's say internet prices were raised fourfold. We link the original place where you can find the most credible source for this in a link on Google Docs, Control K. You enter the link, and then you can press it, and immediately you will be taken to that new story. Yeah. The last thing I want to mention is contacting sources and first-hand sources. So we need a lot of first-hand sources, usually not a lot, like maybe 3 at least, to be contacted in each story that we cover. And to do that, first we always have to introduce who we're working with. We're coming to talk to you. Usually it's the best method is to do it through email, of course, but unfortunately in Lebanon, they prefer WhatsApp. But so it's important to start by email in any case, and then if they'd like to be contacted by WhatsApp, you can do that. To say, for example, I'm reaching out to you as a contributor at SMEX, a digital rights organization, say what the organization is, what it does, and of course this applies to any organization you want to write with. To discuss the implications, for example, of internet shutdowns on students in Yemen, and then you get your information. You have to really be super clear about who you are, why you're contacting them, and what are the questions that you're going to ask them. So this is part of the transparency that you have to build with someone you're going to interview. The interviewees should be initially contacted by email unless they explicitly say not to. It's important to keep records of the communication you have with someone, but only for a period of time, and tell them for how long you're keeping that record with them. So let's say you record a conversation, tell them we're going to keep it until the story is published, then we're going to delete that information. It's not going to be found anywhere. And of course, if they want to be anonymous, it's super important to respect that wish to never mention any revealing information about them if they don't want to be revealed. But it's important to say why you're keeping them anonymous. So for example, you can say for security reasons or for the safety of the interviewee, we are keeping them anonymous. So just also say why this person is anonymous. Okay. I think this is the gist of it. And this will be available also online for everybody to have access to, so you can always get back to it. Would you like? Yes, in both languages.
Shukran, Nurhan. Thank you very much for the great explanation. Actually, yeah, it was a great explanation. Yeah, too many pages, and that took too many days of work from us, from the team, and actually, yeah, months. I would like also to mention that maybe something that Nurhan mentioned many times, but not directly. The interviews, we usually try to reach out to people, to interview them, to add them, to be, as I said before, sometimes they can be experts, other times they can be just like regular people, and we always try to have interviews in our articles. Why? Because we really believe that you need the facts. Sometimes you cannot find a source. Sometimes you will you can do your analysis, your critical analysis, but you need another voice. And we do not usually we do not share facts from our mouth, let's say, because we really need to be very thoughtful and also very credible. So we focus on reaching out to people who are well familiar with the topic and well familiar with the issue we're talking about. I think we're almost done, and I need to discuss with you the articles. How do you see? What are your suggestions? What are your recommendations? Also, what are your questions also regarding what we presented just right now? Because we really need, we always need to fresh eyes, fresh and also and other point of views, be it for our work and also for journalism in general. In addition to that, I would like to add that we always accept pitches and also let's say requests and maybe any suggestions from contributors from Lebanon and the region. And many of you are familiar with this, and they have we published a lot of stories. I don't know, maybe many of you here. But كمان we really would like always to expand our network and to be in contact with everyone. So feel free to reach out to me, Nurhan, also Zainab is with us right now on Arabic. So to discuss the stories, the pitches. لأنه it takes a lot of time. It takes time to read, to discuss the stories and to publish it. لأنه it takes a lot of work because we are following these guidelines, because we are abiding by those tough rules, not tough rules, but they're enjoyable at the end. لأنه we're really producing content that is credible. We need to do this and we need to keep doing this actually. So yeah, I can give you one example later through our discussion about something that we change. Sometimes we change the whole angle of the article because it depends on the time for publishing the blog post. It depends sometimes on the I don't know, on the entity who, for example, who is doing something. For example, be it is it a state actor? Is it a non-state actor? Is it something that is that is relating to e-learning? What should we start talking about? And something very good, interesting, something that Nurhan mentioned is the lead and also the headlines. We don't need to be like that fancy magazine that that seeks for clickbait. لا أبدا. We're non-profit and we also focus on sharing knowledge at the end. We're not seeking hey, we have these clicks, we have these views, we have ما بعرف شو. لا أبدا. Sometimes some stories they don't get a lot of views, but at least we're keeping them as an archive. We're keeping them as a resource for other researchers, journalists, and also students actually. So they're reaching out to us all the time, asking for content, asking for sources, asking for resources also. And we are very happy every time to help them, especially students who are doing their masters, for example, or maybe researchers who are like doing some research about, for example, internet shutdown. So and we feel like very very happy when we share with them our content, our evidence-based content, لأنه it helps them a lot. هلا I think we're done and would like to hear your questions. قد بعد ما وقت؟ ربع ساعة 10 minutes.
It's a 1 hour session.
10 minutes.
يا 10 minutes ما بقسم ناخذ وقت غيرنا. طيب هيدا نحن وهيدا جونا مثل ما بقولوا. so yes تفضلي.
I think she mentioned like chicken for Twitters.
Yeah.
Now states like sort of people in the government tend to use Twitter or Facebook to say voice a lot of their opinions.
Yeah.
But does that make it like a credible source of like sort of there's like a big thing happening in the country and this person said that? Like, do we count it as credible or?
Yeah, it depends.
not
Yeah,
in the House of Parliament?
it depends. And sometimes we try to reach out to them through phone calls to more discuss the issue with them. So but we use for example the tweets or something maybe to not only to add a source but also sometimes to start a point, the discussion point regarding the article. Okay, for example, if someone, for example, the Security when they published about the passports, so we used this tweet just as a reference for us to cover the issue, and then we reached out to them. We had a meeting also. I had a meeting with them to discuss the issue. So the content was a very starting point to raise the issue, and then we discussed the issue with them. We told them about our concerns regarding policy and privacy policy and data safety.
But I think you meant also that if someone posted something, would that be considered as when do you consider it a credible source or not? Is that right? Is that your question?
Like from my perspective is that I do not have like the credible. I'm trying to write a piece.
Yeah.
But I do not have the sort of the power or like the motive, not motive, but like, yeah, like I cannot just reach out and ask them directly to verify their opinion.
Okay.
Do I just take it as like at face value? Okay, they said that, it's done, or do I just ignore it because it was not said? It's not stated in a law, or it was not said in the House of Parliament. You know what I mean?
Okay. I think it really depends on who is tweeting. So if it's someone, let's say if it's a journalist who is super seasoned in the field, who has written so many articles, has been published on so many platforms that are credible, and they say something, then in that case, I think you can consider it as like a credible piece of information. But if it's someone with 200 people who follow them, their tweets are not generally very critical, they barely use any sources or back up their claims, then in that case I don't think they can be considered very credible. But if in somewhere in between where someone says something and you want to use that, you can always use that tweet, but also mention why and how you're using it. So if you are backing it up with something from your end, so if you're saying, so they said this, it's not clear what they might be saying, but this seems to be a general opinion or something that people are following or doing, then you can mention it in that way. But for it to be really credible as a claim, it has to come from somewhere.
Even if you use it as a claim, actually, and sometimes we don't say social media users are circulating this and this. Okay, we don't use this and start and build our story on it. If we do this, we go back to we interview experts who are really involved in this field to confirm or either like to deny the story or the issue or the concern. Okay, so it depends. It really depends on the context.
And I would also say reach out in any case. Yeah. So even if you have if you're still starting out new, if you're, let's say, writing for SMEX, okay, you can reach out to these people and be like, I'm writing this article for SMEX about blah, 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 and I would like your input about it. Would you be available for a conversation on this day and time? So do reach out, even if you have a small following or like you haven't been doing it for a very long time, it's okay. In many cases, you'd be surprised with the people that would actually, yeah. Especially if you're working with a credible organization, whatever it may be, or a news platform, just tell them who you're writing for and why, and they would probably reply. And find their emails on their websites if they don't, and bombard them by emails.
And also referrals are very good. يعني when a friend refer you, referrals are very good. When a friend refer you to someone else, and they can introduce you together. So this is a very good tool يعني to reach out to people. Yeah, okay. Any other question? طيب حقول أنا كمان بالعربي أرجع إنه نحن بنحب دائما نحصل على مقترحات لمقالات لأي مواضيع. حكيت أنا وفراس وأنا وكذا حدا هون. دائما نحن بنحب يكون عندنا بيتشز، مقترحات لارتكلز جديدة لحتى سواء نكتب عنها مواضيع يمكن ما تكون تكتبوا أنتوا عنها، يمكن نحن نكتب عنها بس تكونوا يمكن مصدر لمعلومة معينة أو تساعدونا نعمل معكم مقابلات. يعني هلا مثلا نور اشتغلنا كثير نحن على مواضيع سوا، هلا اكتشفنا انه شفنا بعضنا ان بيرسون على ريبورتس طويله عريضه، اشتغلت يمكن مع فاف او مع حدا ثاني عن ديجيتال اي دي، وحكينا كثير. وكنت انا يعني حتى ترانسليشنز لما كنا نعملهم انا بعمل اديتنج للترانسليشن حتى، يعني لانه ما بدنا يطلع اي شيء ما يكون دائما حتى بالترانسليشنز يعني we do fact check and we do like double sourcing لانه the mistranslation is something like very bad when it comes to do things يعني laws, policies and everything else. And yeah.
ممكن تذكر يعني الكل اللي قعدنا توا على كأس العالم؟
ايه صحيح. and هلا نسيتهم. في عنا نحن عم نكتب عن كأس العالم يعني applications او اي شيء مرتبط بيأثر على الحقوق الرقمية للناس بقطر عن كأس العالم. هلا بلشنا عملنا ريبورت عن هيا اب يلي هي عم يستعملوها حتى يدخلوا على مناطق مشاهدة يعني كأس العالم بالملاعب. عملنا ريبورت كمان از فيري جود ريبورت بالعربي وبالانجليزي، دائما كل منشوراتنا هيك عم بتكون. كمان نحن بنرحب بمقالات وعندنا اوبن كول على الويب سايت. وفي عندنا كمان الفيلوشيب يعني اذا اي حدا بيحب كمان يقدم عليها على سمكس لحتى يطور مهاراته اكثر، يستفيد من الموارد يلي عندنا، من الفريق يلي عندنا، حيكون معه منتورز. فيكم حنستقبل 4 ل 6 تقريبا فيلوز بهيدي الفيلوشيب. فيكون يعني عم بيكون يا اما بالاديتوريال يا اما بالريسيرش يا اما بالتك يونت بالادفوكاسي. سو حيكون هذا الشيء عندنا. وفي عندنا كمان الريجولر بيتشز يعني فور ذا اديتوريال يعني كمان بعيد مره كمان فيكم تحكونا لحتى نكتب خير موجود لحتى تحكونا عنهم. في شيء كمان في عندنا بعد شيء برادر نت يعني مثل ما شفتوا هلا رجعنا اجتمعنا فيزيكلي وكان فرصه سعيده انه شفناكم لانه ماني فيسز يعني ما كنا مرقت سنين ما شفناهم، في نيو فيسز كمان عم نشوفهم. محمد بدك تقول شيء؟
كان بدي اسال سؤال ما بس بالصحافه بس انه ما حكيت انه الاودينس تبعت الاشتراك دائما عم يكونوا ريسيرشرز او ستودنتس صح؟ او خبراء تقنيين او شيء او النيوز تبعت الاشتراك يعني دائما بتستخدم كريسورس بس مو للاوردينري بيبل ليكون.
sometimes بلا يعني وقت مثلا نكتب عن an internet shutdown بلا هذا اكيد انه everyone who's involved will read this. When we write about the rise in prices of telecom services, everyone will read that. When we write about how, for example, delivery drivers are struggling to stay connected, they are involved in this. But also it is a wide range يعني of in this case, yeah, it depends on how we're writing it also. So if it's a campaign, then it will be targeted towards the mass. It depends on the topic. Yeah, each topic will appeal to somebody, and in some cases we are trying to reach a wide audience through our writing.
Yeah, and also we change the messaging depending on the topic also. يعني for example يعني when talking about internet shutdown, maybe it is يعني the messaging would be different when we talk about price raise مثلا. يعني it depends, really depends. And that's why يعني you need to be صحيح the language يعني حتى the main language يعني English أو Arabic يعني حتى.
Why I ask this because usually like that fact checker platforms or like
صحيح.
Exactly.
hate speech because so like it's a main issue.
يعني I got to يعني sometimes they only do their work to check the box to report to the donor or maybe to the ما بعرف مين وخلص انه انا عملت this campaign or I did something or I wrote this article. بس نحن our main language هلا هو العربي لحتى to target everyone صراحة يعني. كان في
I just
No.
wanted to say,
Yeah.
نحن as I work for Privacy International, which is based in London, so we have a huge knowledge gap. صح؟ نحن ما عندنا any access to things happening on the ground. So just one example of from the COVID piece that you published, نحن كنا عم نشتغل على report on a global scale of problems with COVID surveillance, right? One of the gaps we had was, okay, so you're saying that the World Bank funded projects which increased surveillance. So show us examples. And we have zero access to this, right? We're based in London, we have our partners. So one of the examples we ended up using in our meeting with the World Bank was this piece. So in terms of researchers actually needing this, there's a huge gap of when it comes to digital rights, impact stories. Because they always tell us in meetings, these are theoretical risks. Prove to us that this is an actual risk. You're making this risk up, you know, these kinds of things. We don't actually have to do data privacy impact assessment. So the stories that are really important for us are the ones that have the...
so this is a real example. آسف إنك تسأل شيء.
والله أنا بدي يعني أقول شيء يعني ممكن خارج عن السياسة هو المحتوى. الجاب اللي موجود أو الفجوة الرقمية اللي موجودة المشكلة إنه حتى الريبورتس اللي بنكتبه كان بالبداية موجه إلى الخارج مو موجه إلى مجتمعاتنا.
صحيح.
فالأغلب كنا نكتب بالإنجليزي وأنا كمتحدث بالعربي يعني كنت أكتب بالعربي يعني مو لغتي الأم. فالمشكلة أعتقد لحد اليوم هو هذا الشيء إنه إحنا ما زلنا في دور الكتابة للخارج أو للنخبة الموجودة في المجال بدون ما إنه يعير انتباهنا لمجتمعاتنا.
صحيح.
فاليوم إحنا
في واد والناس في واد.
في واد ودائما ما نتحدث إنه في فجوة رقمية في نحتاج إلى وعي ودلنا بالأساس.
صحيح.
إحنا نقدم محتوى سواء كان بالعربي للمتحدث باللغه العربيه او حتى في بلدي او في مجتمعي اللي هو المجتمع الكردي. فهذا الشيء اساسي لازم نحطه في بالنا انه نخاطب بالمجتمعات المحليه بدل ما نكتب للخارج، الخارج هم اكيد يعني يعرفون وفي فجوه رقميه واكيد هم راح يعرفون اكثر من عندنا بما انهم عندهم كونتاكت مباشر ويا الشركات. فمهم جدا نكتب انه نكتب
صحيح نكتب بلغه مجتمعاتنا.
لغه سهله بعيدا عن الاشياء التقنيه البحته.
نعم مزبوط عم تحكي. احد الامور اللي احنا بنحرص عليها هو هذا الشيء، تكون المقالات يعني سهل ممتنع، يكون سهل بنفس الوقت فيها المعلومات، كل هالمعلومات بالعربي ايام او بالانجليزي حتى بنعيد المقاله بتاخذ معنا اسبوع اسبوعين وايام شهر لحتى ما تكون هالقد صعبه على الناس. وبكثير من الاحيان بنجرب، انا شفت انسم كمان بيستعملوا اللغه المحكيه العراقيه انه لاقونا مثلا هون كذا. نحن كمان بنجرب نستعمل وقت للتاني اللهجات اللي تكون اللغه البيضاء او اللهجه البيضاء لحتى نكون عم نحكي مع الناس مش عم ننظر عليهم. يعني هذا شيء اساسي انه to talk to people not to like
يعني انا من مشير المحتوى.
نعم.
يعني عاده نحاول انه نستخدم اللغه الدارجه.
صحيح صحيح. حتى اللغه الفصحى يعني ما بدك تنظر على العالم تقول له اعمل هيك وسوي هيك. يعني نحن بنوصل لمحل بنقول له يمكن ان تفعل كذا، يعني لهالدرجه، لانه عن جد ما بدك تقول للناس شو يعملوا، هو يعني هو حر يعني بده اياه، انا عم بعطيه خيار، هذا الاوبشن. فنحن بنحرص لهالدرجه لما نكتب اي شيء بنحرص انه يكون انه بعض الخيارات مثلا المتاحه امامك هي كذا وكذا، مش ينبغي عليك، بنقول ينبغي للشركات، بنقول ينبغي للدوله، بس مش للعالم.
صح. وشيء اخر انه المحتوى البصري اكثر
شاهد.
نحن كثير اشتغلنا على
سبيل المثال المقال ممكن انه يطرح في انفوجرافيكس راح يكون اكثر تاثيرا من مقال.
هذا حاعطيك مثال، عندنا تقرير ديوان المحاسبه اللي حكي عن فساد قطاع الاتصالات بلبنان، اللي هو تقرير عن هيئه رسميه تابعه لرئاسه مجلس الوزراء من 300-400 صفحه. اختصرناه اول شيء نحن بسمكس، اختصرناه لتقريبا شي 2000 كلمه. رجعت انا اختصرت الاختصار وعملتهم داتا ناجتس وعملت السوشيال ميديا كاردز ونشرناهم على السوشيال ميديا لحتى الناس عن جد انه ما كثير ناس، كل الناس معها وقت تقرا ولا قادره تقرا على قد صفحات. عملنا تايم لاين مثلا الاتصالات، عملنا ابرز النقاط ضوينا عليهم، عملنا لهم ديزاين يكون قريب للناس، يعني بكون هيك في شويه رسومات ما يكون جامد جدا. واخذ بعض هلا اخذ ضجه يعني، وهلا مجلس النواب عم بيطالبوا يعني عم يجتمعوا مع الوزراء لحتى يعملوا لجنه تحقيقيه بهذا الموضوع، مش لانه لانه نحن وغيرنا كمان، يعني نحن عم نضوي، نحن عم نساعد بهذا المجال حتى نخليه. والناس كمان، الناس عم بتشوف انه انا عم بتغلوا علي الاسعار والخدمات بعدها ما زالت سيئه، كمان نحن عم نحكي معاهم بهذا الموضوع. مزبوط اقتراحك 100%.
بس على قصة كمان يعني انه نحكي مع الناس ونحكي باللغة العربية، نحن كمان كتير عم ننشر فيديوهات عربي، يعني فيديو فيك تكون عم تعمل اي شيء بحياتك والفيديو ماشي وبيوصل.
لازم نركز ويا المحتوى العربي.
ايه اكيد نحن برايم، يعني نحن بنترجم يعني قليل ما حدا يبعث لنا بيتش بالانجليزي. معظم الارتكلز الستوريز اللي بينبعتوا بالعربي وبعدين بيترجموا للانجليزي، فالبرايمري سورس دايما بيكون عربي الحمد لله.
شكرا يا جماعه، شكرا لكم.